So let's dive in. So we're starting with Notre Dame, and we're including them because they play an ACC conference schedule. They made the Natty, had a chance at the end, so they had a lot to be proud of. What else happened in their season?
Yeah, Notre Dame, breakout season for Marcus Freeman in his third year up there at Notre Dame. His third season after taking over for Brian Kelly, who famously said he couldn't win a national championship at Notre Dame. 3 years later, Notre Dame played for a national championship. They improved their record this year. They still didn't win it, but they at least looked competent against Ohio State, who at the end of the year we know was the best team in the country. They didn't go out there and make a fool of themselves and lose 65-7 or something like that. Notre Dame has continued to improve under Freeman. This year they finished up at 14-2 after going 10-3 last year, and they finished number 2 in the country after losing in the national championship game. The year started off really good for them. They had to play Texas A&M, and they got a big win on national television against an SEC school that many thought would compete for the SEC. And it was like, okay, maybe Notre Dame's for real. And then the next week happened.
And then week 2.
Bro, tell us a little bit about week 2.
Man, they had just a juggernaut of a team coming in to their stadium ready to blow the doors off of the Fighting Irish. And that team was NIU, Northern Illinois.
I don't know much about Northern Illinois. I mean, I know they exist and they play football. They once had a guy, I think his last name was Lynch, that was pretty good at quarterback. But
I remember, did Michael Turner was from there?
Yeah, I think Michael Turner was there from there as well. Yeah, but Notre Dame lost at home to Northern Illinois, second week of the season.
Yeah, and after that, I mean, a lot of folks, myself included, thought that, man, Notre Dame is done. I mean, how do you come back from that?
Yeah. The good news for them is this season their schedule ended up not being that tough. Notre Dame they play a part ACC schedule and then they play, an independent schedule. And some years their scheduling works out great for them. Some years those teams that they play are down a little bit and they have an easier time. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, they'll have years where they play in Michigan and Florida State and Clemson and stuff like that. And it's a little bit tougher. But this year their schedule ended up being pretty favorable and it helped them kind of right the ship the rest of the way. Obviously, they went the rest of the way undefeated, really led by that 3-headed rushing attack on offense, of Love, Price, and Riley Leonard. But also their defense. Their defense was incredibly strong this season. The number 4 scoring defense and number 11 total defense in the country. And that was after those numbers were adjusted for the playoffs when they played, 4 of the top teams in the country. So they were absolutely what a lot of people criticize Notre Dame as not being in recent years. Tough defensively, good athletes, grit. They certainly showed it because in the past, Notre Dame's Notre Dame. They're good. They've got some good players, but they just can't compete with the schools from the big conferences. Yeah, I think this year they showed up a little bit that they could.
Absolutely. I mean, they were a really tough team, just like you're saying. And when you watched them, you knew that they were going to be in the game and have a chance no matter what, just because they were a, never say die team. Once they got past Northern Illinois, it just clicked. They finally figured out their identity and who they needed to be. And they're kind of built like your old school SEC football team, great interior line play, hard-nosed run game, and a really great opportunistic defense that could get after the quarterback.
Yeah. And I think that opportunistic nature of the team as a whole really helped them in the playoffs, because if you look at their playoff run that they went on, game 1, they were playing Indiana, the battle for the state of Indiana. Really, the early game was fueled by that 90-plus yard touchdown love by Jeremiah Love. That kind of set the stage for the game. And they didn't end up blowing Indiana out, but the game was a blowout without it being a true blowout on the scoreboard. Next game against Georgia, They took advantage right there at the end of the half. They got that fumble where they scored a touchdown, their first touchdown of the game, and then they returned that opening kickoff in the second half. And all of a sudden, a game that was super close went to a lead that Georgia, without a quarterback, just couldn't pass, couldn't get back into the game. And then when they were playing Penn State the next week, the game was tied. Penn State had the ball, and it looked like maybe we were heading for overtime. And Drew Aller, who was a solid quarterback all year for Penn State, throws a bad pick that sets them up for the game-winning field goal. So they were really, really lucky of the Irish, but they did get some things to go their way in the playoffs that helped them, play solid defense, keep themselves in it, and get them to a national championship game. It was a really, really special season for Notre Dame. First time back in the national championship since 2012.
Yeah, and you got to have some luck on your side to win a championship. I mean, we saw it with Georgia when back-to-back there were several plays that could have changed the outcome of games that happened to go Georgia's way. So, their level of play, putting themselves in the right position so that they could have those things go their way. That's
Absolutely
exactly what they did. And
yeah, you don't luck into playing for a national championship.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to get a little luck on the way to help you out.
Sometimes you just need that ball to bounce your way.
At the end of the day, this was a great season for Notre Dame. The loss to Northern Illinois still is puzzling, but for me, I can't give them anything less than an A for this season. I thought they were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, me too. I mean, wins over Georgia, Penn State there at the end, and put up a good fight against Ohio State and then in the national championship. I got to give them an A too. They were rock solid this year. Okay, and so they're based off our records grade. Since they made the Natty, they get an A for that. So for their Notre Dame's 2024 season grade, they get a final grade of an A.